Hello, it's me here. This is the first in a series of brief overviews of the missions in the Heliophysics Education Activation Team or HEAT. Now, these are missions that are managed by the Heliophysics Science Division at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center, which is where I used to work. So there will likely be some bias in this series. However, I do think all of these missions are interesting and important, and I am looking forward to sharing them with you. So let's get started with the Parker Solar Probe, which was launched in 2018 to study the Sun and its corona. The corona is this beautiful but mysterious outer atmosphere of the Sun that we still do really understand. It's super hot, like 2 million degrees Fahrenheit hot, which is about 1 million degrees Celsius. To put that into context, the surface of the Sun is only about 10,000 degrees Fahrenheit, or about 5,500 degrees Celsius. So why is the corona so hot? Nobody really knows. But it's probably something to do with these things called coronal mass ejections or These are massive bursts of plasma and magnetic field that erupt from the Sun during solar maxima. CMEs are one of the primary ways the Sun blasts plasma to Earth and other planets. And while we can observe CMEs using coronagraphs, which basically take pictures of the corona, we'd really like to understand what causes them and how they accelerate to such high speeds. Understanding CMEs is important because when they strike Earth, they can disrupt important infrastructure like our telecommunications and power grid system. You may have heard about these before. They can also damage satellites and astronauts in space and generally make living in the modern world slightly more dangerous. So understanding these eruptions and how to forecast them is very important. And that's one of the main reasons for the Parker Solar Probe. Another reason is that the Sun rotates, and as the Sun rotates, it drags these magnetic field lines with it. And as these magnetic field lines get twisted up, they become stressed and eventually snap. And when they snap, they release energy that heats the corona. Think of it like a rubber band. When you pull a rubber band back, it gets all twisted. And then when you let it go, it releases that energy in a snap. But unlike a rubber band, the Sun's magnetic fields don't quickly return to their starting state. Instead, the magnetic field lines remain jumbled and tangled, which forms this sort of permanent fuzziness around the Sun called the solar wind. And the solar wind is another thing that the Parker Solar Probe is designed to study. It is a constant stream of plasma flowing outward from the Sun at speeds of hundreds of miles per second. And just like CMEs, the solar wind carries energy and magnetic field to Earth and other planets. In fact, the solar wind is what makes the Earth's magnetosphere, which is this protective bubble of magnetic field around Earth. Without the solar wind, Earth wouldn't have a magnetosphere and we'd be pretty screwed. The solar wind also causes auroras and can disrupt the ionosphere, which is important for radio communications. So again, understanding the solar wind is really important. The Parker Solar Probe studies the solar wind in CMEs by making repeated close passes to Venus. Yeah, that's right. It uses Venus as a gravity assist to slow down and make these close passes. After launch, the probe flew by Venus 7 times, and each time it used the gravity assist to get closer and closer to the Sun. Eventually, in 2021, it made its closest pass yet, dipping inside the orbit of Mercury, which is the smallest and innermost planet in the solar system. Since the launch, the Parker Solar Probe has made incredible discoveries about the solar wind and CMEs. For example, it found that the solar wind actually comes in these big bubbles called and these switchbacks seem to be generated by these sausage-shaped waves in the solar wind called magnetohydrodynamic waves. The Parker Solar Probe also found evidence of an 8 cycle in the solar winds that seems to be tied to the magnetic field of the Sun. All of these discoveries are helping scientists better understand and forecast space weather, which is really important for our increasingly technology-dependent society. Next up is the Solar Dynamics Observatory, or SDO. Unlike the Parker Solar Probe, the SDO doesn't venture close to any planets. It stays in a high orbit around Earth, which allows it to continuously observe the entire disk of the Sun. That's because the SDO is designed to capture the big picture of solar activity. It takes daily images of the Sun in 13 different wavelengths of extreme ultraviolet light, which helps scientists track things like sunspots, solar flares, and The SDO also captures images in visible light, though fortunately, it doesn't try to compete with the gorgeous photos taken by the solar orbiter, which I'll talk about in a later episode. As a matter of fact, The SDO and the solar orbiter complement each other's observations really well. Like the SDO sees the whole sun, but it doesn't see the north or south pole, and the solar orbiter can see the poles, but it COA and see the whole disk of the sun. So together, they give us an almost complete view of our nearest star. The third mission in this series is the Solar Terrestrial Relations Observatory, or STEREO. Technically, STEREO is actually two spacecraft A and B, which were launched in 2006 to take the first ever stereoscopic pictures of the sun. That means they take pictures of the sun from different angles, which gives us a sense of depth and allows us to see things like CMEs coming toward Earth. Before STEREO, the best we could do was use coronagraphs to indirectly infer the 3D structure of CMEs. And that is because Earth-based coronagraphs and even the solar orbiter and the SDO are all in the same orbital plane as Earth, so they can only see CMEs head. The STEREO spacecraft, however, were intentionally placed into orbits that were ahead of and behind Earth in order to get these different viewpoints of the sun, and this has been incredibly useful for tracking CMEs. It is actually thanks to STEREO that we had our first ever view of a CME traveling around the entire sun. What's really cool is that STEREO A and B orbit the sun in such a way that every couple years they align perfectly with the Earth and the sun, and they take these awesome pictures of CMEs hitting the solar wind. These observations help scientists understand how CMEs shape the heliosphere, which is this huge bubble of solar wind and magnetic field that surrounds the solar system. The heliosphere acts kind of like a protective shield for Earth, deflecting most of the interstellar dust and cosmic rays away from our planet. And the last mission in this brief overview is the Interstellar Boundary Explorer, or IBEX. Now, IBEX was launched in 2008 to take a global map of the specifically the boundary of the heliosphere, called the Like STEREO, the IBEX spacecraft travels around the sun, but it goes much farther out than STEREO. In fact, it's currently farther out than Neptune. That's because the IBEX spacecraft was designed to detect the interstellar pickup ions. Which are these ions in the interstellar medium that get picked up by the solar wind? These particles are super helpful for mapping the heliopause because they become gyrating, meaning they move in circles when they cross the boundary between the solar wind and the interstellar wind. And that creates this beautiful ring of light that IBEX can detect. IBEX has been taking beautiful images of the heliopause ever since it reached Neptune's orbit in 2012. And these images have revealed a lot about the shape and structure of the heliopause. For example, IBEX discovered a huge ribbon-like feature in the heliosphere called the which is caused by the Earth's magnetic field draping along the sun's axis. The IBEX spacecraft also carries a low-energy telescope that can detect other things like interstellar dust and cosmic rays. Cosmic rays are high-energy particles that travel throughout space, and they pose a serious threat to astronauts in space. So understanding how the heliosphere deflects cosmic rays is really important for protecting future explorers. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, please hit the like button and subscribe for more science videos. And if you're interested in supporting my work, you can check out the support page. Otherwise, I'll see you next time.